Formula 68. You know what Hitchcock used for blood in Psycho? Hershey's chocolate syrup. Unbelievable, huh? He did that because it was about the only thing that looked like real blood when shot in black and white. You want to know why it was shot in black and white? Because in color, Hitchcock knew the shower scene would be too gory, and it would never get past the censors. Yeah, different time, all right. You know, I first came out here to the City of Angels in 1974. Just right, if you ask me. The studio system was pretty much defunct at this point, not to mention the fucking Hays Code. Censorship was slowly becoming a thing of the past. Now you had the new wave folks taking over this town. Independent minds being backed by big studios and even bigger money. The audience was now being given the opportunity to dip their toes into the cinematic abyss of depravity. Cursing, tits and ass. Violence. Now, that last one is where I come in. See, not only did the filmmakers and audience want blood, they wanted realism. So, goodbye, chocolate syrup, and hello, Formula 68. A work of fucking genius, if you ask me. You want to know the two key elements to making good movie blood? Color and viscosity. Key. I mean, we all remember the blood from the old horror movies that looked like acrylic paint, right? I mean, yeah, it needs to be red, but the common mistake is that it's too bright. Real, fresh, unexposed blood has a dark, almost purple hue to it. Well, that part was easy. I perfected the color in my last year at film school on a short we were making for graduation. But after the color comes the viscosity. And this would prove to be my biggest hurdle. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't master the perfect formula. Real blood, it has a thickness to it. But it can't be too much. It still needs to have flow. You know, like how when you cut your finger, it doesn't just pour out like water. No, it has body to it. It'll linger for a while, like honeydew, building and building until eventually the force of gravity brings it down. Here, let me show you. Ah, come on, don't worry, I'm just teasing you. But anyway, this very element eluded me. Cornstarch, brown sugar, corn syrup. I mean, it goes on. And every time I would get close, it proved to yet again be just out of my grasp. And I knew I was missing something. Well, it was March 11th, 1976 when everything changed. And that missing element came into my life. I had been working at Lyon-Maris Film Studios. They specialized in sci-fi horror films. Usually schlocky, usually low budget too. Started there as a runner, eventually worked my way up to junior assistant in the makeup department. And it was here when I was given my first real shot at the big leagues. Lead makeup artist for Lyon-Maris' latest horror outing, The Bleeding House. I mean, this was the real deal. Lead makeup artist. Damn! I know I'd impressed the studio a year earlier when I was assisting on The Vomiting Fiends. Man, we were flying by the seat of our pants on that one. Anyway, they liked my concoction of beaten eggs and oatmeal for vomit and said it was so believable that the studio head, Haxel O'Connor's wife, Mabel, had puked herself during a screening of the dailies. So I kinda knew they had their eyes on me. The Bleeding House would start production in April. There was big-time anticipation for this one. They'd even managed to secure their first star for a cameo in the film's opening, Samantha Carveth. No? You remember the redhead from all those early De Rossi pictures? Anyway, I was to have an assistant, and my assistant on The Bleeding House was to be a new addition to the Lyon-Maris family, a 24-year-old graduate from Ontario's Allemand University. Her speciality was makeup and costume design, but she caught the attention of Lyon-Maris for submitting some film footage of her creation for photorealistic pus. She was also, as I later found out, a big horror nut. God, Being so impressed, Haxel wasted no time at all in getting this puss entrepreneur on the first flight out to California and signing her to a 3-year contract as assistant makeup artist. Damn! So here it was, the missing element to the key that had always eluded me. Aviana Conroy. God, you know when you meet someone who just has that thing? That ability to make even the most monotonous of life's ordeals intoxicating. You know you've met the person who will change your life forever. God, she had the most beautiful eyes I'd ever seen, emerald and shining, like a clear Colorado lake on a summer afternoon. And damn was she smart. Oh yeah, she was going places, that's for sure. We were inseparable, as colleagues and in life. Yeah, funny how things materialize, isn't it? But God, she was the perfect mind, the perfect partner. Then, one evening in March, we parked up by the Hollywood sign and looked out at all the little firefly windows in the valley. And we just talked all night long. As the sun was beginning to rise, her hand in mine, she put her other hand down her skirt and, closing her eyes, whispered something that sent chills through my legs, made my skin break out in goose flesh and the hairs on my arms stand up. Without even looking at me, she said, "You know something, Nudes? We're gonna blow this town sky high." We went back to her place. She had an apartment on Lincoln Avenue. I'd been there many times by this point. She didn't say anything when we got there. She just told me to wait in the kitchen. But my mind kept returning to that knowing whisper back in the car. We're gonna blow this town sky high. Then she returned with one of those big coffee thermoses in one hand and a book in the other. The book was held in a brown leather cover and fastened shut with a little lock. "What the hell is going on?" I asked her. She gestured to the thermos. "Right there is what's gonna turn the bleeding house from underground schlock into a fucking cinematic masterpiece." She could see my confusion, so she asked me to hold out my arm. I did, and without taking her eyes from mine, she removed the thermos lid and unscrewed the cap underneath. Holding the thermos 2 inches above my outstretched arm, she gently tipped it at an angle. And then I saw it. At first, I thought it was wine. The harshest burgundy I think I'd ever seen. But no. No, this didn't flow like wine. And wine was too thin to slightly accumulate first around the rim of a bottle or have that initial resistance to gravity. I watched in amazement as the liquid fell through the air and landed on my skin. It was cool, ever so slightly syrupy, but not sticky. I suddenly felt a simultaneous feeling of hypnotism and sickness. Was this blood? It couldn't be. Aviana laughed and said, "I call it Formula 68. She scooped up a little of the red liquid on her finger and licked it. "Go on, try it." So I did the same. It was sweet, but there was also a harsh metallic undertone to it. It definitely wasn't real blood. That's when I realized, and it was as if I felt every cell in my body dancing for the first time in my life. The girl had created movie blood, but not just any movie blood, the most realistic I had ever seen. She had that missing element, the key ingredient that had forever slipped away from me. We both locked eyes, and after a few brief seconds burst into laughter. I grabbed her in my arms and spun her around in the air. We were both hysterical. I knew exactly now what she meant, and as soon as the big guys at Lyon-Maris saw this, it would cement our standing in the industry as Hollywood's leading makeup artists. Oh God, when we calmed down, I had so many questions. How did she do this? What was the recipe? Well, Said recipe and all its ingredients were in the sealed brown book she'd brought out, the contents of which she refused to reveal to me. She wouldn't even open it, wouldn't even tell me where the key was. You know, it's a funny thing when you think you know someone. But then how can we ever truly know the inner workings, know a person for the kind of mind they are? That was when I discovered a different side to Aviana. A side that would later prove to be both our undoing. See, she said she would share this success with me, but on one condition. She would be the one to receive full makeup credit on the film, and I would take an assistant credit. The work, the commitment, my dedication. Finally, here I was on the cusp of real success with my first lead makeup artist credit, and this bitch wanted to take that away from me. Clearly, in her eyes anyway, we weren't the partners I thought we were. I was devastated. Either I agreed to her conditions, or she would go to Haxel's office first thing in the morning with the blood thermos and claim the creation as her own anyway, securing her position on the film. What hurt me the most was the clear way she fixed me with her eyes, assuring me there would be no negotiation. I suddenly felt such hatred for her. Her betrayal was too much for me to take. The room was spinning, and I just had to get out of there. So I left. I left cursing her to the high heavens. I could have condemned that bitch to the blackest pit of eternal misery. I was so angry. I found the nearest drugstore and bought the biggest bottle of scotch they had and wandered the streets of downtown LA. I don't know how long I walked, or how much I drank for that matter. All I know is I awoke to the sound of gulls and the burning of sand in my nostrils on Huntington Beach the next morning. What time was it? It was early, I knew that much. And you know what was even weirder? I still had that sweet, metallic taste at the back of my throat. I had to see Aviana. I raced as fast as I could to her apartment, praying she hadn't left for the studio already. Maybe there was something I could say, something that I could do to persuade her or sway her mind. I was too late. She was gone. The fucking bitch hadn't wasted any time. She'd even left the damn door ajar. Hailing a cab, I went immediately to the studio and, thundering through the hall to our little room we shared on the lot, plowed through the door, ready to plead for her forgiveness in whatever way I could. But that too was empty. Nothing disturbed from the janitor's nightly cleaning. Her coat wasn't even on its hook. There was only one explanation. Damn, she'd gone straight to Haxel. So, with all the sorrow of a schoolboy who knows he's lost the girl he loves to his best friend, I made my way to Haxel's office. Only upon arrival was informed that she hadn't been there either, and hadn't even clocked in for work that morning. Oh, I was feverish all day. Noon came and still no Aviana. 5 p.m. rolled around and still nothing. After I clocked off at 7, I decided to go back to her apartment. Maybe she'd just taken the day to cool off herself. I gasped when I entered the kitchen. The thermos and brown leather book were still on the counter. Something was up. I was terrified. Taking a moment to compose myself, I slowly walked down the hall to her bedroom. I don't know why I had the urge to check her closet, but I did. It was empty. So were the drawers. Everything was gone. Walking back to the kitchen, I sat at the counter and tried to piece it all together. I just couldn't. Everything was so still, so quiet. There I was in that ghostly kitchen in that empty apartment, with that thermos and brown leather book smiling at me. We sat there together for the rest of the evening, waiting for Aviana's return. She never did. It was like she just vanished. Well, to cut the wheat from the chaff, the Bleeding House was a monumental success. It was, to date, Lyon-Beck's highest earner. What with the combined efforts of Samantha Carveth and Formula 68, The studio had never seen such profit. I mean, people were literally lining around the block for this shit. I remember the news articles. We even had a mention in the New Yorker. That's right! Oh yeah, Priscilla Call actually reviewed the film. She hated it, naturally. That dried up old pussy never did like anything. But she said, and I quote, "This attempt at a film has possibly the most nerve-shredding gore ever photographed." So, there you go. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Sitting there on your high horse. But what would you have done if you were me? Huh? Did I take the thermos and book? Yeah, I did. And did I break open the little lock to that book and find the recipe to Formula 68? You're goddamn right I did! You know something? In this town, all it really takes is for that one little shot at success to come along, and once it does, you grab a hold until your knuckles are raw. Yeah, and I'll tell you, boy, were things swell for a while. After the success of The Bleeding House, I was soon the talk of the horror scene. Oh, you betcha. And I mean, I'm talking the heavy hitters now. You know, in the year following, I worked with Jack Carpenter, George Roman, and Hooper Burns. Yeah, man! All the big genre hotshots wanted a piece of me, and it only got better. I was in heaven. Then, it was February 10th, 1988, when Aviana Conroy decided to enter my life again. Well, her foot did anyway, or what was left of it. I mean, what the crabs and seawater hadn't already taken. Yeah, it was the right one. The bones had been found under a rock pool on Huntington Beach by some kids. Imagine that. I was on set that day. Yeah, it was Dave Krasenborg's latest film, Flesh Fusion, and I was applying the last touches to the prosthesis that would hold Francine Waller and Tammy Stoll's torsos together, when I was told the LAPD were on set and wanted to see me. Imagine. Well, turns out not only was the foot a match to Aviana, but after subsequent investigation, they also found a fragment of her blouse with my DNA buried under the sand at Huntington Beach's garbage unit. I mean, are you fucking kidding me or what? So, I've been in here ever since. You know, you're actually my only visitor. So you say you're writing a thesis on this kind of stuff, huh? Yeah, that's the nature of this town, man. You crawl up and up and up and up through the lows, and then one day you reach the highs. And when you do, you better make sure you really stop and sit those sweet waters. 'Cause I'll tell you, the highs don't last for long. Still, it was fun while it lasted. I mean, the New Yorker's Priscilla fucking Call, man! The most nerve-shredding gore ever photographed. That was me, man. That was me. This was an Evcol Entertainment production, a part of the Masquerade series of monologues, written and performed by Mitch Howell, directed and produced by Simon James Collier, soundscape design by Archie Lyon-Maris,